concerns from your district that may be different. And then I think Brian talked about the last piece is what will PE look like in the fall, and how do we do that safely for our students as well as our teachers? So let's start with Zone 1. Anybody from Zone 1? If you would introduce yourself and what district you're from.
Good morning, everyone. Denise Kiernan, Section 1. I'm in the North Salem Central School District. I'm the Director of Health, Physical Education, and Athletics. I see Jesse is there too, rolling the dice and going first. I think that this has been certainly a very challenging time for everyone, including our students. And we're really just working towards trying to figure out how to roll out the live synchronous teaching. We actually just started with the synchronous teaching this week. We're a little bit behind most school districts because we took our school break, as I mentioned the last call, the first week in March 16th, a break. And so we've had some time to prepare. And what we found is that the students really want to have a combination of asynchronous versus synchronous, live and pre-recorded lessons. So we had drafted, excuse me for 1 minute. I have a 6-month-old puppy, a golden retriever. Sorry about that. So we drafted a memorandum of agreement with our school district for our phase 3 return to, the distance learning phase for our teachers. And it's really just a combination of the 3, pre-recorded lessons and so forth, and then asynchronous, synchronous meetings with our students. As far as grading, I'm trying to follow what you wanted to talk about, Ron. For Q4, we're pass incomplete. Our teachers are really working hard to make sure that there's a no-fail initiative going on and that all students can be successful in this kind of environment. We are creating rubrics to determine what pass and incomplete look like on a 3-point scale, 4-point scale. We're still working through that. Adaptive phys ed and IEPs, I think that'll be a lot easier once our teacher goes live, because they can work directly with the student on the video and on the camera live. And for PE for the new school year, I'm really concerned about what this is going to do to the future of our content area. Reading in Denmark and Finland, they're in Sweden. They're doing phys ed in chairs in the classrooms, rotating teachers through. So, there's an understanding out there of the new PE. And while all the people here on this call understand what that new PE looks like, we all agree that you can learn physical education cognitively. And I think that's going to be the push come the fall, if in fact we are in school and if in fact we are going to be in a classroom setting versus a gymnasium. So I have a couple of concerns moving forward with that, certainly.
So Denise, a question on your synchronous learning. Are the teachers assigned a class, or are they assigned a time that the kids, how does that work for you guys?
So we're really, really flexible. Initially, we had rolled out a specific schedule with a time and a period for every teacher to be accessible to students. But we are feeling that there's so many different needs from students right now, with parents working out of their homes on their laptops, not having the accessibility. Everyone has a computer. In our school, Chromebooks have been given out to every student in the school district. We're very small, so we're very fortunate. But I think there's that combination of trying to figure out, at 10:30 on Mondays, how is phys ed going to happen when everybody else has stuff going on as well? So we feel that the teacher can throw out a couple of dates and times. We actually did that with our sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Friday night, we did 3 different sessions, myself and the high school principal, for students to check in. We had a 5 o'clock, a 5:30, a 6, and a 6:30 for the students to just tune in on a Google Class Meet. And it was outstanding. The students just really wanted to see our faces and talk with us and have conversations.
Awesome.
Anybody have any questions or thoughts, comments? Okay, thank you.
Denise, what's the most common platform you're using? Are you using this Zoom video?
No,
For
Zoom
teachers?
has not been approved yet by our school district. We're using Classroom, Google Meets, and Google Hangouts, which my coaches who are being paid for the spring season are meeting with my teams once a week on Google Meets, as well as with the captains and underclassmen through that platform.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I might. Thanks, Denise.
You're welcome.
Anybody else in section 1 would like to speak with us?
I would. My name is Jesse Merchant. I'm from Hastings, another small school district in southern Westchester. Very similar to Denise, just a few little changes that I would add. We are, our grading policy right now at the middle school, high school is basically a high pass, a low pass, or I guess I shouldn't even call it a low pass, a medium pass, and a incomplete. And if a student passes in the fourth quarter, then they actually drop the lowest of the 4 quarters. So it's a bit complex, but I think the idea is very similar to Denise, trying to make sure that students know that this isn't a grading policy built around penalizing kids, but instead built around trying to get them access to, in every grade, in every discipline, passing, give them the best opportunity. As far as the fall, I haven't even gotten my head there yet. I think there are going to be so many changes between now and then. I'm kind of waiting to see, but that is part of why I wanted to join today's meeting. So I'm looking forward to hear what everyone else has to say.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the input. Anybody else, section 1?
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi, how are you? Tilsa Gonzalez. I'm at New Rochelle. Good morning, everyone. So as far as new content, when everything started, what I did was I held a meeting with my teachers, and we were not on Google Classroom at the time. Obviously, everyone needed to move over to Google Classroom. So we have each teacher, each period has a class. So odd day, period 2, they're broken up that way. We started off with written assignments. Honestly, I was very concerned about children moving around too much at home, because at that point, it was just too much up in the air. And so there may have been some older children caring for younger children. So we started with assignments that were short readings, and then in order to kind of gauge participation, if you will, the teachers all created mini Google Forms, and that was kind of like their participation. And so what we did was every teacher created a certain amount, and then they all collectively shared it, because our class sizes are pretty large over at the high school. I have one teacher that collectively has 418 students. Wow. And so they shared the work, and then the time was spent reaching out, and the outreach is basically coupled with the rest of what's happening at the school. We have a system where if a student has not completed work, then after the teacher has done some type of outreach, then it's taken over by our guidance counselors and another crew of people who do outreach. We did explore new content. I mean, it was, when I say new, it was just, like I said, something that we created in the last 2 weeks for the 4th marking period. We graduated to physical activity and logs. And that was actually after I reached out to several of my colleagues, and someone suggested Darby. And so I discussed it with my teachers. We decided how we would approach it. And so the children are given a workout. And the way that we do ours, we do not do synchronous, we do asynchronous. And the reason we do that is because we have the gamut of classes. We have children taking 7 APs, and at the time, no one really knew, were they still going to have regents? Were we still going to have AP exams? So as we were waiting for that, the assignments, we wanted them to be something that the children could do at their leisure. So the district agreed to allow the children to have a timeline. So they do it within a timeline. It's assigned by Monday, and they have to complete it by Saturday at their own time, because it should be their own way of decompressing. And as long as they do the assignment and they get it into the teacher, and if they're running late, they can email the teacher. As far as grading, for the third marking period, we had a pass incomplete. So students were not going to fail. They were just going to be given the opportunity, and they have up until, and the district will give us a date that they can hand in any work. The fourth marking period, I think it's clear. Students can choose whether or not they want a numerical grade, or they can get either a pass. And if there is still an incomplete because they haven't handed in work, the district is going to determine, perhaps is that going to be done during the summer, and maybe that will take the place of summer school, or will they be given some type of extension? But the idea is to be able to allow the children to hand in work. But if they do want a numeric grade, then obviously it's an average of the 4 marking periods. As far as adapted PE, the special education teachers have Google Classrooms, and so the adapted PE teachers give content and videos to the special education teachers, and they're right now posting it. That was a huge struggle for me. I did not know what to do, and I was worried about it not being too much, not enough, what would be appropriate. So that's where we settled. I spoke to the high school supervisor for special education, and so we kind of went over, and I reached out to a couple of different people and even some teachers, and so we agreed on videos. As far as the fall, I've been doing some homework, and I have already started thinking about the fall as much as possible. I've kind of come up with what I think would be a schedule to spread out the students. I'm hoping that we will still have use of the gym. I'm just thinking as much as possible as using every single space. And I'm also thinking about, there's a platform that I actually learned about at the conference that I attended. And I hope I get their name right. I think it's called PT4M, where they have both online content, and I've already spoken to him. And so I'm thinking of doing a blended learning model to start in September, so that if we are in school, we can train the children on what we expect. And I'll also be taking the month of June to plan with my teachers. And I'm thinking in my head that I'm going to start with creating Google Classrooms, so that if we are in person, we're going to start with the classroom. I'll have every child signed into a classroom in September. And if something happens and we leave, then they would have already been trained in the expectation. And I think we'll do everything as a blended model.
Chelsea, anything else?
No, just taking it day by day. And I spend a lot of time. I mean, I do, I saw the recording. Thank you very much that you sent me. And I actually took a lot of notes. I do use OpenPE. The struggle in the beginning, and the reason why I gave the cognitive activities, is because in the beginning, when this whole thing first happened, I was a little concerned that some of the initial videos that came out, they were still showing pictures of children running around a large open space. And my concern was some of the children, especially in New Rochelle, because we have the north and the south end, my concern was a child in an apartment, a child in a place where there's a 2-bedroom apartment, there's 4 children, yes, I want them to exercise. Yes, this is so incredibly important, but it was a huge concern. So I think moving forward, more resources and information that I'd like to collect is to be able to really, really provide resources for city living and what children can do. Because the other thing is that if and planning ahead, if we do find ourselves in a situation, I think we really need to think about the winter, and if children are in the house, and I guess, yes, it could be a simple cognitive activity, but we need balance. So that's going to be my big to-do for the next couple of weeks, is thinking that through.
Great thoughts. Could you do us a favor? Send either Brian or myself the information on the PT4M.
Absolutely. I'll send you his contact information and everything. And I don't mind sharing like I said, I started planning. I was watching the news and I heard the governor say, we're probably, so I've already got like dozens of notes. So I don't mind sending you some of the stuff I've already
Thank you.
collected.
Thank you.
No problem.
Anybody else? Zone 1. Let's go. Anybody from Zone 2? Go to Zone 3.
I'm zone 2, but I don't really need to spend a lot of time giving you guys stuff that's already been said and gone on. But I'm here to learn and gather more information. The one thing that we have had be very successful is a young man on our staff is gifted in the use of the internet, and he has created a Scotia Glenville website that houses a lot of our activities, and we have put out information for parents and kids alike to see that addresses limitations. So we'll put little videos of our PE teachers using any kind of structures to accomplish our mission. If we're trying to have them do a manipulative activity, then we'll show how you can make a wadded up piece of paper and an empty 3-liter bottle of soda and make that work. So we're trying to accommodate everybody, and that's probably been our best resource. I wouldn't bore everybody with all that we do that's similar to what's been said in terms of the classrooms and whatnot. That's probably been our something that we're the most proud of. My high school principal just said it to me earlier this morning that his daughter was on there and getting to the website was easy. So that's been something that I could share a link to or something like that if you guys are interested.
Jamie, can you use the chat feature and put that link right on there so people can see it?
I think so, Brian. I am not
Just
the
email
expert.
it to me if you would, and I'll send it out.
No, I'll do my best to put it in there, and if not, I'll send you an email.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Can we go to Zone 3?
Hey, I'm Tam Ray in Auburn in Zone 3. We're doing for our new content to go down the list. We're doing the same things as everybody else: Zoom, Google Class, email, phone calls at the secondary level. And pretty much the teachers have been very good about finding out what works for different groups of kids. And I think that's what it is. It's just at this point, it's individualized to see which kids you can get to through which means. The grading and our district concerns, I think our district concern is going to be budget. And we have an administrative meeting today to discuss grading. Our superintendent has finally gotten tired of waiting for state ed guidance, and we're going to figure out what we want to do and go from there. And then your APE, at the secondary level, we have one guy, and he travels back and forth between schools, and he is emailing what he wants the kids to do to the parents directly. And then he has phone call conversations twice a week with those parents to make sure they don't have any questions and to get at it that way. And he's found that to be most effective. At the elementary level, we are integrated with the classroom teachers, and we go through them to get the stuff that we need to the kids. PE in the fall, as a league, we're meeting soon, maybe Friday, to discuss what we can do in terms of athletics and how we can adopt things and be safe. And I think I'm going to try and be patient. I'm not good at it, but I think the governor's decision on what he's going to do with summer school is going to be influential. I'm hoping my region only has 2 more indicators before we can start our phase back. So I'm going to be optimistic that the fall may not look exactly like I would like it to look, but that eventually we will get back to what I think is good physical education. And thank you for putting this together. I always learned something great. I liked Denise's idea about a Zoom, my principal and I doing a tag team. I think that's a great idea.
I'm just going to go back to one of your concerns, and that's budget. And you brought it up, and that's going to be, obviously in New York State, it's different in every district, but that will be a huge concern. And does budget influence phys ed? So that's something that we need to all be aware of. Thanks, Dan. Always nice to see you. Yeah. Anybody else? Section 3, please.
Yep, this is Rhonda Bullard from Oswego City School District. We're pretty much doing everything that Tam's doing. What Tilsa talked about, it's platform, it's PLT, 4 and an M. It's a great online resource for kids and different things. So it is platform. They're wonderful. They've been free up to this point, but I do know that they're also going to start obviously charging or whatnot. Some of the issues that we've had, obviously budget is something, we don't know what the fall is going to look like. We're also going right through the middle. We just started a phase of a capital project, which is not great timing, but good timing for construction, I guess. So we're just trying to figure out right now, knock on wood, I haven't had to make any real cuts in regards to physical education, which is nice. But we've actually been also providing some supplemental information just for kids, because we know that some kids are going to need just a little bit of extra help, or maybe some stress relief for mental health. Not that it's going to necessarily be graded, but we've been doing monthly movement. So we take the month of May, and then every single day there's something, and it's a calendar based, where kids have an opportunity, whether it's their family, they can do it on their own. Like I said, it doesn't need to be turned in, but we just want to make sure that kids' mental health is there as well. So it's something that can be done in the house, and it can also be done outside, obviously, if it's safe for the kids to access that. But it's just kind of movement based. Each day there's a different activity to do. So, and we change it each month. So it's on our district website, so I can certainly share it with everybody. And then we do the activity logs for the upperclassmen, middle and high school. And then for elementary, we are using Google Sheets to have lessons. And then the regular classroom teacher is delivering that instruction twice a week. So that's where we're at.
So what have you thought about the fall? What will phys ed look like?
We haven't had that conversation. We do have an admin meeting today to talk about the budget and maybe what the fall is going to look like. So I'm hopeful with Tam. I'm figuring that, fingers crossed, we can, put something together. It's not going to be, like she said, what we truly, believe will be the best case scenario. I know with all of our titles, though, my biggest fear is athletics. So, I know a lot of kids come to school for those extracurricular opportunities. And if we're not able to have fall sports, I think that's going to be really detrimental to different things. But I think phys ed will have it in some form of capacity. I will certainly push for being a good team player, but I'll certainly push for some kind of movement based. I know Tilsa talked about, people doing something in chairs or something like that. I'll try to be as creative as possible so that they can also get their heart rate up. So we definitely want to stimulate the physical, but also the cognitive. So.
Well said. Well said. Section 3.
This is Ben Storwalt with Syracuse City School District. We've been leveraging the WCNY information out to all of our county folks, and I think it's getting picked up across the state. So we're utilizing various phys ed teachers and health teachers to be on screen and deliver lessons for those students that do not have access to all information. We've also been putting out packets for students to work on, again, for those students that do not have internet access or access to technology. And then finally, what we've been trying to prepare for the fall is setting up some sort of guidelines as a whole school district and not just department by department. We have a team going on to see what it will look like for phys ed and how we're going to utilize that moving forward.
And grading?
Grading, we are doing just feedback right now.
Okay. So biggest concerns that you have from your district?
Our biggest concern will probably be the budget for next year. 2 years ago, we finally put a place in to meet the state mandates, especially at the elementary level. So we want to kind of advocate for that. Our biggest push right now is SEL learning. The Health Moves Minds from SHAPE has been a great resource for us.
Great. Anything else, Ben?
That's it.
Anybody else? Zone 3. Can we go to Zone 4?
I'll go first just because I have to
Okay.
go to another meeting here in a few minutes. It's Murphy Hayes. I'm from Whitney Point Central School District as the Director of Health, Phys Ed, and Athletics. We at our school district are a rural school district with some socioeconomic challenges. So we were able to mobilize everybody with some type of device immediately at our district. So the difficult part is sometimes them having internet access just where they're located rurally. But we seem to be moving forward, and new learning happened quite swiftly at our district. And also we did not take our spring break. So we started grading as soon as the new marking period occurred. So at the elementary level for phys ed, their report cards moving forward will be anecdotal. So that information is, based because the students can only engage in the learning. And our new learning right now, for instance, we're doing gymnastics. So the teachers are doing different type of, different poses, different balances, things that are simple and safe at home, very unique way to teach it without kids being hurt. And so those are different type of units at the elementary level. And they Zoom with the classroom teachers so they can demonstrate as well as post things in Google Classroom so kids can see what the little videos look like. And then also for adaptive phys ed at the elementary level, they're calling home to check on them. At the intermediate and middle school level, they're using Zoom time. They move forward with their new units. For instance, one of the teachers is teaching their bowling unit, just how you would construct that and learn how to score, or made that how you make out of soda bottles and a Nerf ball at your house. So we've been still trying to move forward with our content, and they will be graded on a 3-point rubric. The high school, they're really working towards like fitness planning and logging, and then teaching things like cardiovascular fitness or muscle endurance within the fitness logs on Google Classroom. We're really fortunate in our area at BT BOCES because Carrie Bullock, who is part of New York State AFER Board of Directors, she is our BOCES leader in phys ed and health, and she has been having since day one each week for an hour, elementary, middle, high school, each day of the week. They have a Zoom call for an hour and they strategize regionally. So the teachers have been really proactive and creative and shared with each other and very positive. As far as the fall, I'm just trying to wrap my head around, thinking about what kind of content and curriculum that you can do individually and separate if we're allowed to be in the gymnasiums. How you would possibly take the yoga mats and make sure that they're 6 feet apart, or how can you, if you were outside, if you were really out on the track, how would you start them at different spots in different lanes? I mean, I just think you just have to think out of the box and blend it with technology. Budget is a big concern. We've already made significant cuts, staff, not necessarily health and phys ed, but it's impacted my athletic budget quite a bit, and we are not hiring any teachers back if they're retiring, and then that will cause different implications in classrooms and staff. Luckily, health and phys ed right now, we don't have anybody that will be impacted. Thank you, and I've got to go because I have another meeting, so nice to see everybody.
Thanks, Murphy. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate comments. Anyone else? Section
This
4?
is Kathy Haight.
Hi, Kathy.
I'm at Southern Cuga Central Schools, a small rural district. We are not adding new content at the junior high and high school level. We're kind of doing what Tam talked about. We've got stuff on our Google Classroom that they've used since September. We've got logs that they are doing. We had packets that went out. We mail things if the kids don't have good internet access, but they have to get stuff back into us. At the elementary level, we sent them home with a packet, and we sent a second packet home. And then the second packet that went home just last week, which is for this, we have a new marking period that starts today because we do 6 marking periods. The elementary kids are supposed to do a like American Ninja Warrior course in their backyard or set up something. So a couple of the kids, when went out last week, already started videotaping them and sending them in. So they can take pictures, they can video them, or they can just write an explanation about what they did. So some of them are pretty interesting already with the ideas the kids have come up with. Grading, since we have 5 marking periods and we had gotten through basically 4 of the marking periods before this started, the 5th marking period, they're either pass or exempt. If they get an exemption in the 5th marking period, then it's kind of just not going to go in as a grade. And then we're going to only grade out of 5 out of the 6 marking periods. So we're making contact with those kids that didn't hand in enough stuff. We're sending a letter home actually today saying, hey, you missed in this 5th marking period, the 6th marking period, we really want you to give it a go. And then we will use the grades from 5 out of the 6 marking periods. They had numerical grades the 1st through 4th marking periods, the 6th marking period and the 5th marking period, just pass, fail, or pass and exempt. But hopefully they don't get 2 exempts in a row. Our teachers have been calling them, texting them, emailing them, anything to try and get a response from some of the kids. Our concerns are with the ELLs. They are being put to work on the farms up to 70 to 80 hours a week, so they're not doing any of their schoolwork. So that's like a big thing, not just not for physical education and health only, but for all their classes, because they're spending so much time working, they're not getting any of their schoolwork done. Budget concerns for physical education and for athletics for next year. Hopefully physical education won't be hit as badly. And when we look towards the fall, I talked with both my high school teachers the other day. We've already started coming up with some ideas. If we are, have regular 18 to 20 kids in a class, how we can spread them out. There wouldn't be the problem outside. It's more once we come inside. So we've already started talking about that, but we really don't have a direction yet with what's going on there. That's about it. Thank you.
Hey, Ron, I think you're trying to talk, but you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, we wanted you muted a lot during our Monroe County meetings. I wish we had that feature back then, buddy.
Well, then you would be 10 years behind times.
Anybody else from section 4?
Ron, you're still muted. Is there anybody else from section 4? Otherwise, we'll go to zone 5. I know there's a couple people from zone 5 on here.
Zone 5?
Hey guys, can I ask a quick question before we go to zone 5?
Go ahead, Todd.
All right. My name is Todd Lisi. I'm actually in zone 3 at Homer High School. I just was curious. I know there's a lot of variables that are out of our control right now, and we could go down that rabbit hole of what's going to happen in the fall and what isn't going to happen. The one thing right now that is definitely going to happen and is happening is locker clean out. We're trying to come up with some creative ways to get, we have students, over 500 students in the high school that have left their stuff in the locker rooms. We have our students in the junior high, 6 through 8, that also have left their stuff in their lockers. Has anybody had that conversation about a process procedure, especially with right now? Do we ask staff to come back to help out? I know we have hourly staff that can help at the buildings, but anything that's come up or conversations about that?
I've had conversations in Yonkers about it, but right now we're waiting a little bit longer to see if there's any flexibility on gatherings.
Okay.
We're starting this week. So when I'm in, I'm going with my SRO. We're going to their PE lockers and bagging up the stuff in the PE locker, putting their name on it, and then it'll be put outside. We have packet pickups. We have stuff that's picked up for the students Tuesdays and Thursdays. So their bags will be put out there and they're told what hours they're out there, and they'll have to come pick them up in that time span.
Okay.
A lot of kids take stuff out of their lockers because we had a feeling it might be coming. So we told kids to empty both their hall and PE lockers, even though there's a lot of kids now contacting us. So we're just starting the process today, actually.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Out in Clarence in section 6, we are going to be planning on like staggered times between classes, 9, 10, 11, 12, a couple different days. We're going to have stuff bagged up and kind of time allotments with alphabetical order. You know, A through D comes in from 8 to 9, you know, for 9th graders, etc. So we're kind of planning we have a pretty big, you know, high school of about 1,500 kids. So, you know, we're doing that with school lockers and the PE lockers.
All right, do we want to move to section 5,
Thank you.
zone 5? Zone 5?
I'll start. How you doing, Ron? Dewey Weimer, Victor Central.
How you doing?
So for new content, K6, we've been pushing out new content daily, mapping our curriculum into K3, 4, 6 themes. So we have our presenters being able to film themselves, providing some instruction. We have different jokes that we put out to try to engage our kids as well. We're doing this through an app called Glide. And we're also using our website and social media platforms as well. I can share the Glide app to the group. We're doing it this way through applications because we don't have one-to-one here at Victor. So everybody has a phone, so they're able to utilize their phones to be able to search. 712, we're utilizing Google Classroom. Our grading procedures is a passing complete for 712. K6, we're looking at the totality from the time that they were there, from the first day until we were dismissed. But 712 is focusing on electives, mainly cognitively based. We're providing instruction with our teachers and providing resources as well through the use of Google Classroom and Google Forms. Health education is really focused on mindfulness and strategies that the students and parents can use to be able to get them through the pandemic. Major concern is budget, of course. Looking at, you know, the whole scheme, Victor Central, you know, with our previous budget concerns and the concerns of our state aid, we have some major shortfalls. So we're anticipating having to make cuts in athletics and potentially physical education, but we're also looking at increasing class sizes as well. Thank you.
Anyone mind if I jump in for zone 5?
As long as you promise to shave. Yeah, you're good for it.
Thanks, Brian. Hi, everybody. Fritz Killian from Fairport Central Schools. I'm not going to repeat everything that I've heard already. It's all great stuff. But somebody talked about the mental health of our students, and that it's a real emphasis with us in Fairport. And you know, I see it in my own house. Our youngest is a 6th grader, and the middle two are we've got a high school senior and a high school sophomore. The high schoolers, they're doing fine virtually. Our 6th grader is really struggling, and it's been a struggle for Lori, my wife, and I, as actually my wife more, as we're helping her get through that. And in terms of phys ed, right now we're doing videos, we're doing a lot of complimentary things. We're trying not to put too much pressure on the kids, but that mental health piece I think is really, really important, and I know you all agree with me. And as we're planning for the future, that's something that I'm working on with our health and phys ed teachers. We meet once a week through Google Chat, and we're just trying to come up with plans. But one thing that I've been very, very careful is try not to get too far ahead of the apple cart. Looking at guidance from our superintendent, Monroe County Health Department, CDC. I've tried very hard not to set our staff up to plan for one scenario versus finding out later it's not going to come to fruition. For example, a week ago, a lot of them were, Fritz, we got to get ready in case we're coming back, May or June. My response was, no, let's wait for the governor's announcement. I don't want to put all this work in and then all of a sudden it doesn't come to fruition. So, now we're waiting. Is there going to be summer programs? We'll find out at the end of May. September, we're planning on opening school, but we all know that there's going to be some social distancing. But anyway, for us, it's the real big emphasis in mental health.
So to piggyback on that, most of you already know this. This is the Mental Health Awareness Week on New York State Public High School. And there's a nice toolkit on their website. Today is Break the Stigma Day. So you can use your social media platforms to do that as well. So
Fantastic. Nice. And Dewey, thank you. I forgot to thank you for your input. Anybody else? Zone 5, please.
This is Todd Hagreen from Brockport. Our district is focusing a lot what Fritz is talking about in Fairport. And we've gone as far as they've assigned every single student a staff member, a point of contact that's sole responsibility is to touch base with that kid on a weekly basis. So it's a lot of students, and a lot of those are phys ed teachers. As we know, they make some of the best connections with kids, especially at-risk kids. So their role, and they've got a huge spreadsheet, and they've got names, and they can sort by who they're supposed to contact, and that's really a point of emphasis in our district is to meet those needs and to touch base and make that verbal or video connection with kids to keep them on track and to keep them in a good place.
Biggest concern at Brockport at this point, Todd?
Budget. I've already been told we're losing a phys ed teacher. We're looking at a significant gap and how that's going to impact our phys ed programs and what we offer. And we love our program, and we're starting to worry that that could jeopardize what we can offer kids. And then, just the uncertainty of the fall. I think everybody's in the same boat. We're not sure what it's going to look like. How we can be creative, and if we're in school, we'll be creative and provide the best program we can. It's just are we going to be back, and what will those limitations look like if there is any?
A lot of unknowns, that's for sure. Anybody else? Zone 5?
Hey, Ron, this is Larry Lang from Clyde, Savannah. The only thing I can add to this is what everybody's been talking about. We have our teachers, all our teachers and phys ed teachers as well. We have hours on a daily basis that we are available. So, for example, our high school teachers are available from 8 to 10, but they're also available by appointment. So if there are if there's any kid that cannot participate at that time, they have other hours that they can participate with, whether it's at nighttime or not. They just set up a schedule. Our elementary teachers are going from 9 to 12 every day. They do daily activities and try to grab the kids in. Mostly when the kids are coming in, they're mostly coming in just for the engagement. It's not as much as the area of trying to do some type of phys activity, but most of the kids just want to come in and chat and see everybody's faces, and then they get into the activity that way. Budget wise, we are in a very worrisome time in our district for budget, especially if this 20% is an actuality. It's really going to kill our district in many, many ways. So I don't even know what that even looks like. We meet constantly administratively to figure out how we're going to look moving forward. There were big cuts already before this happened. So now moving forward, there's going to be more cuts if this is truly what it's going to happen. From a phys ed standpoint, I'm going to go piggyback off of what Fritz said. I try not to put too much emphasis on getting ahead of the ball game right now with my staff, because every day it changes. So we try to take one day at a time, and we change things as needed. But we also are preparing for the future and trying to figure out how that's going to look, especially, you know, my superintendent and I had a conversation yesterday about what phys ed is going to look like. And, you know, when we get outside, that's not the issue. It's when October comes and November comes and the winter time comes, how is that going to look when, you know, we're using all the social distancing we have to, and all the, you know, with the statements brought down. That's where we're trying to figure out and move forward with that.
Larry, I just want to jump on something you said, because I thought it was right on. You said that when you Zoom with kids, they just want to see a familiar face. And I would say to all of us as directors, it's the same with our staff. And most of you are probably already doing this, but you know, try to have a set time that you meet with your staff via Zoom, just to check in, just so it's the same for them. They need to see a familiar face too, not just yours, but their colleagues. And let's not assume that they're not seeing each other, not talking to each other, especially from a K-12 standpoint. So, you know, you sparked that thought in me, Larry, when you mentioned that the kids want to see a familiar face. It's the same for our staff. So
yeah, for me personally, I have a 10 o'clock every Thursday morning. We meet, even if it's 5 minutes, even it's, you know, sometime one time was an hour, but the hour was just, you know, first half hour was all about what's going on, but the second half hour was just we were just talking, because no one's seen anybody, and just it was just good to have a conversation with everybody. And, you know, we're laughing, joking around, but it was good. It's you know, setting those times really helps out. I know that my teachers are appreciating that, but it's a good thing just to have those social interactions.
Larry, I like the idea that you talked about the half an hour just catching up and how's everybody doing? How's your family? How's your kids? I think that's important. We do that with adults and we do that with our students, and that's how you build relationships. Fantastic. Anybody else? Zone 5, please.
This is Sean Stragey from Webster Schrader. I was just going to, in terms of other new stuff, it sounds like we're in similar fashion to most of what everyone's saying. Someone mentioned that they have office hours. We have those as well, which works out pretty well, because you know where you can access people where they're not on other Zooms or they're doing learning or something like that. That's helpful. But our district is really has a serious lens on the education law 2D, which is, I would say we're probably one of the more stringent groups. So we are actually not able to use any new non-vetted software or anything like that. So that was a challenge at first. Luckily, everyone from middle school up in our district was already on Google Classroom. That's how they do their class, their choices for classes in the future years. So that was a pretty easy turnover for them. The elementary schools, similar, they're flying, and they're sharing the workload and providing standard-based, lesson planning, and they send it out with videos, and they do like an activity log. And it's pretty great to watch them work together. But I echo a lot of the same points. It's great for us to hear each other, and just like it's good for them to use each other as a sounding board, and us as a sounding board as well. So thanks for the chance to join today.
Thanks, Sean. Continue, Zone 5.
Mike Murray from Churchill Child. Just a couple things. I like that you guys added the adults too, and I'll just add to it that it is Teacher Appreciation Week. So if you haven't even just sent out an email to your staff thanking them for everything they're doing and what they continue to do, I would encourage you to do that. I sent one out yesterday. It was really well received, just to let the teachers know during this time you're appreciative for all their extra efforts. A lot of the things have been talked about, we do too. I have weekly meetings with the department, and again, they do love that. So I don't mean to focus back on the adults. We're all about kids, but I do like that got brought up, and I wanted to just add that to it.
Thanks, Michael. Nice to see you. Anybody else? Zone 5, please.
Yeah, Ron, John Tikachek from Gananda. And again, it goes back to the adults, but this one's with the parents. it took us a couple weeks to figure out that not every home's the same. You've got parents that are going to be very involved with, especially your elementary school kids, having them engaged. Myself, I've got a 9th grader, and my 2 oldest girls are either in college or they're out of college. But I would sit there and think about, okay, what if I had a 3rd grader, a 5th grader, and an 8th grader? As a parent, how am I going to do my job and also make sure that they're doing what they need to do if they're not a self-motivated student? So it took us a little bit a while to figure that out. And so we're trying to also, I'm going to use the word appease the parents, but that may not be the right word, just to make sure that we're taking into account some of the struggles that may be going on in the home life too, and not to overdo it as far as some of the things that we'd want or expect. I've told my staff that you're doing a fantastic job, which they are, but the teaching you're doing right now is nothing like you would do with the kids in front of you. Because in those cases, you're giving constant feedback all the time, and you can't do that right now. So the message we've had is just to keep it simple. We're doing a lot of the same things everybody else is doing, but my big concern is our budget next year as well. So I'm hoping that we get some sort of assistance from the federal government when it comes to that. So
John, I like your reflections on the multiple students at home, parents who are working, and how do you balance and how do you do this? It's so challenging for teachers, for administrators, as well as parents. Thanks, John. Great stuff. Zone 5.
Sorry, you know me, Ron, I can't shut up.
Mike, you got to ask a question.
I don't want to disappoint you. I'll think of one. I meant to add, is John just sparked my brain a little bit. With our kids, we're really trying to be as flexible as possible, given exactly what John just said. Some of our teachers even have kids at home they're trying to teach themselves. So we're really just hold kids harmless, I guess is the best word we're using in our district, and trying to be as flexible as possible and not, overly demanding or overloading. And while at the same time, getting them to recognize that, especially at times like this, health and PE could be the most important things you do in your whole life. Yes, English and writing and mathematics and everything else is important, but let's be honest, what's more important right now than health and PE? And I know we're all biased in this room, but it probably would be foolish for anybody to say otherwise, that it's not the most important. So, but with that said, we're trying to be real flexible, not too pressing with, wanting this today, wanting this tomorrow, just because everybody's in a different place. Kids are turning stuff in on Google Classroom at 11 o'clock at night, and that's fine. We're not worried too much about when it comes in, what time it comes back.
Great, thanks, Mike.
Ron, I got a quick question for people. I'm wondering if those people that are offering new learning and or providing resources, what is the duration of time you're going to do that for? So are you going to go until the last day of whatever level secondary gets out, June, whatever? Are you going to go until the final day of instruction? That's, I guess, a question for the entire group that people have thought about.
I could talk to that, Todd. I know for Clyde Savannah, what we've done is our 3rd quarter just ended last Friday. We extended it. But they also have a 2-week window after the quarter to get any activities that they need to turn in. I know with the 4th quarter, what our plan is we are going to go right up until Regents Week. And then during that Regents Week, kids are going to have an idea of what their grade we went with a pass-fail at Clyde Savannah. And they are going to have that Regents Week to do any makeup work that they possibly can get in before the final day, so they can get their work in. I know that one thing I didn't mention is our district purchased for our students who do not have Wi-Fi in their homes or anything like that. So that was part of our strategic plan this past year. We ended up ordering, once this all happened, we ended up ordering enough Khajiit so that everybody had Wi-Fi to be able to use. I know the one drawback to that was the first couple of weeks for those who didn't have Wi-Fi, we found that they were using up the data with gaming and stuff like that. So we had to figure out how to manipulate that a little bit. And now the Khajiits have more data on there just in case they run out. But we have extra Khajiits at the school, so if they run out of data, they're able to pick them up. To go back to the other thing about picking up kids' materials and stuff like that, we have twice a week we have out at our field house, they're allowed to pick up food for those who need food and stuff like that. So we're using 2 days, those 2 days to have kids pick up their materials out of their lockers or their phys ed lockers. So that's, and our maintenance and school staff are going to be boxing everything up and have names on their boxes. I just meant to add that earlier. So, but that's how our grading's working right now for the rest of the year.
Yeah, so Larry, you're going to offer your phys ed resources and ask your teachers to continue to do what they're doing until, is that K-12 until Regents Week and everybody's
That is
done?
correct. Yeah, we're going to K-12 and right up until Regents Week. Yes, that's correct.
Hey, Todd, Clarence we're going to June 1st with our high school, middle school and high school. And then June 1st to June 10th is makeups. That's across the board in every subject. You know, we're a no harm district, and we're just trying to give kids an opportunities to, you know, get caught up if they need to. They'll be notified of what their grades are at that point.
What about K-5 or
K-5? They're going to be, right now we're just providing resources, and they'll continue to do that. You know, but we're waiting, to get some guidance on when we're actually gonna shut things down from the state perspective. So,
but Jason, are you giving new content?
Yeah, which level?
At the K-5.
Yeah, they're providing new stuff. You know, some of them do it on a daily basis, some of them do it on a weekly basis, but they're just providing resources, different activities. You know, planning a virtual field day kind of thing. We're doing that, but you know, every teacher's got a little bit of autonomy to provide what they want to provide.
And how you're going to do that for how long?
Right now, the K through 5 is to be determined. We're not sure where that's going to end, but the high school level, because that's more grading, you know, credit bearing and grade oriented. We're stopping June 1st, so the kids have opportunities to make things up.
Thanks, Jace.
So Todd, what's interesting, and I know you talked about it at Brockport, I know we've talked about it here. Teachers technically had a work spring break because we're online instruction, so there's still some negotiation on when the end of the year is actually going to be.
Right.
Let's go back to Zone 5. Anyone else?
I was wondering if I could ask a question. I know I apologize, Ron. I know I'm section 2, but on athletics and getting kids ready for the fall, I had forgot I wanted to ask, any conversations your districts about this is the time of year where we would another week or two start doing fall physicals, you know, here at the school. And, you know, my nurses are inquiring of me what the summer might look like in terms of will we do physicals for kids over the summer, you know. So I just didn't know, has anybody gotten that far with thoughts?
Amy, I know that the NISFA sent out a memo announcing the cancellation of all spring championships. And in that memo, it speaks to the New York State Education Department working with the schools to outline students even coming back to school without the proper vaccinations, forget about COVID, but just getting kids back to school and the proper setup. And then obviously this has been an ongoing thing on my side is the hiring of coaches who need CPR and first aid requirements. And I know this is not an athletics forum, but for physicals as well, you know, what does that look like? And once again, and I don't know if I can interject, it's the whole concept of, you know, we're using Sports U, the platform for social media for student athletes to connect with their students. And I'm hoping that if at all, if we don't have a fall season, we do have a fall season through that platform. So I do have my coaches connecting with student athletes, at least at the secondary level.
Good question. Good question. And anything that you need to bring up in today's meeting, please do.
Yeah, Ron, if I could just step in with that that physical question that Jamie had. My colleagues in Monroe County have heard me say this before. We've got a real good friend that's a pediatrician, and I'm just going to be a realist here. I am optimistic, but I'm just going to be a realist. What she has told me is the amount of appointments that she's had to reschedule, and what she has been directed to do is, along with her colleagues in their practice and guidance with the county health department, when I talked to her about the possibility of fall sports, her number one question back to me is, Fritz, I don't even know how I'm going to get all the physicals done on time that are part of my practice. And every pediatrician is in the same boat. So that's definitely going to be some type of challenge that we're all going to have to face. I'm sure we can come up with a reasonable solution, but that is definitely a topic that's something that we're all dependent on. It's not just for our athletes; it's all of our students that, depending on what grade they're in, need to return to school with some type of physical and vaccination.
You know, I think the overarching concern will be if we have false athletics, how do we bring our student athletes back safely? That'll be paramount for sure. Let's go to Zone 6.
I'll jump in. Jason Lembeck from Clarence. Like everybody else, I think we're all doing kind of the same thing in terms of new content. You know, we're all at different points, but kind of directed by our district to do what they feel is necessary. A couple of the concerns I have, obviously, our budget. You know, we're looking at $2.5 to $4.5 million. You know, short, which is going to mean a reduction of staff, obviously, in some capacity, and perhaps a lot of other things. So that's the biggest concern for me. You know, we're also, some of the other concerns that we have is how do we really recognize our senior athletes, our seniors? It's been a challenge for all of us. You know, I know our hearts are breaking. I know Long Island, you guys did the lights. I've been doing the lights since last week every night. Just turn them on. They got that nice system with Musco. And, you know, how do we do that is important to me. As far as re-entry next year for phys ed, we've been talking for about a week or two, anticipating this was going to happen. And, you know, first off, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to order like as much hand sanitizer as possible and put, you know, huge jugs of it in each locker room. You know, we're also talking about possibly not changing. You know, we don't necessarily have to change for PE, what kind of individual activities you can do, increase the cognitive stuff. You know, how do we sanitize the equipment? So, you know, I'm trying to get my teachers ready to respond to their principals, you know, because they're going to come to them and what are we going to do? And they come to me and what are we going to do? And so we're along those lines. You know, we're talking as a district. Do we, you know, stagger every other day? Some kids come in, some kids come the next day. You know, do we alter times, busing? You know, all those things are, you know, where we're at trying to discuss what the potentials are. We're trying to be planful. So those are kind of the big things that are a little bit different, you know, but again, I think the budget piece is going to be the biggest, you know, how it impacts, you know, sports, you know, phys ed. But I will say, to echo a lot of your thoughts, it's just great to see you folks out here, you know, the great people here. This is what we do. And I think that's the hardest thing for everybody, administrators, kids, teachers, is just, you know, being disconnected. And, you know, this is my third week on this call, and, you know, I just love to hear what people are doing and see some familiar faces. So I appreciate all that you guys are doing. And, you know, this forum is fantastic.
Thank you,
keep up the great work.
I'm just gonna quirk in here a second. Jason mentioned the locker room changing. I'll tell you, back a few years ago, before I retired, 2 years before I retired, we had a total remake of every locker room in our school. And for 1 year, we lost use of all locker rooms. Oh my God, the phys ed teachers were going crazy. The coaches, what are we going to do? We went all year without one complaint. Every kid was dressed for games. Every boy and girl, we had no complaints from teachers. In the beginning, all the phys ed teachers were saying, what are we going to do with our activities? We didn't change one thing in our activity offerings. Had no complaints from parents, no injuries. We had no one sitting out because you couldn't say you forgot your shorts. All you had to do was bring sneaks. The next year, what do you think the teachers asked me? Now, we had all upgraded locker rooms. What do you think the teachers asked me, Jason?
Not to change.
Do we have to change? Because all that complaining at the beginning of class about where's your uniform and this and that and sitting out and all this other business was gone. So I would say don't worry about that.
Yeah, you get 10 more minutes of activity too.
Exactly. So just a thought, just this other side.
Thanks, Jace. Anybody else? Zone 6.
I'll jump in. Jeff Wheaton here from Amherst Central. Just to echo a lot of what you all are doing and saying, the focus in our district has been real heavy on the mental health, social emotional learning. I'm working closely with our wellness committee to revamp some of our procedures and policies going forward. Some concerns, obviously budget, we're looking at a potential $2.5 to $3.5 million cut. Our superintendent is being proactive about, I'll call it stockpiling money at this point from the money that we did not spend this spring on various programming in hopes to alleviate some of those cuts. And it's kind of where we're at. I'm not going to repeat many things that you all said, but I think our health and phys ed teachers are doing a nice job. I'd say that we're in a little bit of a rhythm right now, kind of a hybrid model of resources that we're putting out there and trying to stay connected with kids as much as possible.
Thanks, Jeff. Anybody else?
You, Jeff.
Think it was nice. Zone 6. Let's go zone 7. Zone 8. Zone 9.
Jump in.
Go back to zone 8. I couldn't click fast
All right.
enough. Carol from
Pretty.
Upper Center. Hi, everybody. I'm just pretty much mirroring everybody else. I am holding off even thinking of what fall looks like. I did point out in one of my last admin meetings that there's not enough wipes in the world to handle phys ed and or athletics. But on the flip side, if we are having athletics, then why are we not having phys ed? So that's just, kind of a thought in my head. If it's okay for 40 kids to be on a field and crashing into each other and sweating, then why is it not okay to have a class of 30? So in my opinion, it can't be both ways. Either we're all in or we're not, and then we deal with it then. My middle school and high school have been flowing nicely. I don't remember who said it from section 1, but we kind of started the same way. We were prepared with the first 4 weeks of written assignments. It gave us an opportunity to get the Glide app going. Thanks to everybody for sharing. And so we've been kind of adding new content in the Glide app, K through 12. We have a mental health section on it. We have an adapted phys ed section on it. And we're kind of just rolling that out. Middle school and high school, before we even left, everybody had Google Classroom. So we were kind of up and running with middle school and high school and progressive in what we were requesting them to do. We are now at we created a Google survey form, and they are doing their activity responses on the Google form, and it goes right to the classroom teachers. So that's middle school, high school. Elementary is where we have been having the most, I would say, negative kickback from the parents, because 4 and 5, right away, we created Google Classrooms for everybody but the specials. So just the classroom teachers did it. Now we're 7 weeks in, we are finally being invited. Every time we kind of push something for phys ed, we were told to dial it back. The parents were flipping out that they had to take a picture of the log and email it to the classroom teacher. Why is it not on Google Classroom? Why is it not on Seesaw? So the district purchased an extension to Seesaw, which we're using with K1, 2, and 3, where now there can be a phys ed link on that one page and a FLES link and a music link and an art link. The parents really were very, very, very overwhelmed. They felt they had to do the logs, which kind of defeats the purpose. We would have accepted a picture of a football, drawn by a first grader, but they felt it was more work for them. So again, every time we pushed forward, we got pulled back. Again, that app went over well across the board. So we're now progressing to middle school and high school already have dedicated office hours for the phys ed teachers. Everybody takes a day pretty much. And then elementary, we're afraid to scare everybody, so we're about a week behind on that. And right now, the phys ed, elementary phys ed teachers are being invited into the classroom as a class guest right now, just to say hello. And they've just been communicating with their kids right now via just emails. In the process, we're creating, so new content, we're creating education lessons that will, as soon as we get our links, then we're going to be putting up our own education lessons. And so we're kind of going in the right direction. Same fears as everybody else. Budget, what's phys ed going to look like? Is phys ed no longer going to be a state mandate? All that stuff that could come with it. So they're talking about staggered, having less kids come in and renting other places, budget cut, and how are we doing that? And staggered start, I'm busing with athletics. I was like, you're tripling your busing. Anybody noticing that? So for every 3 steps we take 2 steps back and kind of regroup a little bit. So that's kind of where I'm at in Rockville Center.
Thanks, Carol. Fantastic. Anybody else? Zone 8.
Yeah, go ahead, Charlie. Go ahead, Charlie.
So just to go through the list really quick, right now, synchronous versus asynchronous, I'm delivering a lot of asynchronous instruction just so my students have an opportunity to go back and look at it. But there's opportunities for them to obviously meet with me, ask questions, look for clarification. But a lot of people mentioned the mental health piece. When we meet, it's really more for them to just see me, right? We joke around a lot. They just vent a lot. We talk a lot. Questions will come up every once in a while. I use that through Google Meet. Like this Friday, my health meet, it's we were talking about frozen pizzas last time, so we're having a frozen pizza party for our meet. Everyone's going to make a frozen pizza if they have one, and bring it. One of the things that I'm trying to focus on in my instruction, obviously from a teacher's perspective, is not only just access, but equity, and also keep being very aware of the fact that my students all of them can kind of see themselves in the things that I'm administering, I guess, on the PE side, but sometimes even more so on the health side. So for example, I gave a consent activity out last week. They had a week to complete it. It was hypothetical scenarios. 2 different characters were involved in it. The characters were gender neutral. The sexual orientation of the characters were nondescript. And all of those types of things. And I'm just trying to be very mindful of the things that I put out there to make sure that they're equitable and my students can see themselves in it. In terms of all the time, PE or health, I'm creating a Google Doc, and in Google Classroom, I'm setting it to make a copy for all students. So they just type right in there on that Google Doc, answer questions, reflections, labeling things, whatever. And then at the bottom, I have my glows and my grows section, which is their feedback. Like here's where you killed it. Here's where you nailed it. Here's some things maybe to think about or correct if you want to for next time. Adapted PE, I'm not totally sure what's going on with our adapted PE teacher. He's in the building the first 2 periods, and then he goes to the elementary school. I know with IEP stuff, I'm working really closely with parents, even students that I have that don't have an IEP, but need some sort of modifications right now. I'm kind of allowing the parents to I don't want to say dictate that to me, but say, hey, here's what my child needs right now. And then I try to fill those gaps the best as possible. In my district, we're doing straight numerical grading, which had some hurdles with it, but that's where we are. So we developed a rubric to give students a numerical grade for everything that they turn in. But obviously, there's a lot of room for flexibility in terms of promptness and basically everything. So PE in the fall and budget, one of the things that I'm trying to do, and I think I alluded to this a little bit last time we met, was I'm really working hard as a teacher to differentiate physical education and physical activity, because I feel that frames public perception of us, and public perception may drive decisions in the future. So we met as a staff yesterday, and one of the messages I delivered to my coworkers, something that I'm trying to be very mindful of, is where we're most visible right now as a profession, and that happens to be, because of the current circumstances, social media. And when I peruse social media, what I see is a lot of things that kids could maybe do even without us. And there's also a lot of great stuff there as well. But I feel like a lot of the things that kids could do without us is getting a lot of attention. And I don't know how that works for us going forward with budget cuts. And somebody mentioned maybe mandates, and we know what happened in California with the rollback of the mandate minute and the waivers and all that stuff. I was talking to some teachers in California yesterday. So I'm just trying to be very mindful of the difference between PE and PA and how public perception could drive decision making. And then a bunch of you mentioned checking in with staff. As a teacher, I appreciate when my AD does that. I'm holding everything together really, really well when I have to, right, for my kids and my athletes and with the spring sports and all of that type of stuff. But in those other moments, this is really, really hard, as it is for you as administrators, I'm sure, and the kids and just everybody. So when my AD just calls me and he's like, "Hey, how are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm good." He goes, "No, how are you?" I really appreciate that as a teacher. So it's really cool to hear that a lot of you are doing that. If you want, in the chat, I could throw a link to one Google document that I've put together just so you could see how I have my students edit inside the document. And then I leave the feedback at the bottom if you want me to.
That would be great, Charlie. Please do that. Yes, that'd be great. Always nice to hear your thoughts. Thanks, Charlie. Al, I know you're out there and you want to speak.
That's all right. There's really nothing that I can add. I know we're on a little bit of a timeline. We're using Google Classroom, the Glide app. Grading is flexible. Work K through 12, so there's a lot of different levels. I did ask my teachers to make sure that they sat in on the weekly classroom meetings with the elementary school kids to make sure that they make a connection, hear their voice, see their face. These are all things that you might not think about until you get to a situation like this, and then you see how important, like you said, Ron, relationships are, especially for adults as well as for kids. So these are all good things that we're expressing. Thanks.
Al, what's the Rochester shirt?
My daughter actually went to school at Brockport, but she lives up there now and works at the Rochester Mental Health Hospital. So
Let me go there. I'm gonna do
That's
this.
awesome.
it's not a
9,
long
10,
commute.
11. Anybody who wants to chime in, 9, 10, 11, help us out here as we get towards the end here. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Jana Moran. I'm in New York City, and I'll keep it brief and just share some things that I think might be relevant for all of you. I mean, obviously, budget stuff is crazy here, and we're looking at a lot of vacancies that will unlikely be filled this year. But one of the things that our teachers are doing together is they've created online professional learning communities. So I know a lot of your districts are smaller, and are probably meeting regularly and being able to share. But for some of the bigger districts that are on the call, they've created some Microsoft Teams groups where they're sharing resources and having regular meetings. So various teachers across different districts across the city. One of the other things, some of them have even created things like a virtual field day. So they're doing it for their entire district. A bunch of teachers getting together and coming up with a bunch of different activities on video that they can then share with students and families to do together. Grading, typical like everywhere else. Elementary school kids get a meet standards or a needs improvement grade. Middle school, they're also looking at a meet standard, needs improvement, or a course in progress. And similarly at the high school, no one will fail. APE, special education remote learning plans were a huge challenge. I don't know if other people experienced that, but it was also a great opportunity for us to really be able to share with IEP teams that physical education teachers really do need to be part of the process. What else? Oh, I think another big thing that we're doing here, someone mentioned that it's Teacher Appreciation Week. And so we actually have an online way to acknowledge teachers so that they get emails and they get celebrated by different people across the district. It could be parents, it could be other students, it could be central staff, principals. And we're also moving forward with our Big Apple Awards. So we do have a physical education teacher each year that receives one of the Big Apple Awards, which is a Teacher Appreciation Week normally activity. And we're in the process of interviewing those teachers, and they'll be celebrated in a few weeks. What else? I think, and again, like everyone else said, you know, our teachers are focusing on various things because we are such a large district. Some of our schools are really focused on the social emotional learning aspect and just engaging with kids and making sure that they're connected with someone in their school, while other teachers are really focused on, you know, physical activity and providing videos and workout logs or live instruction in some cases. And we also have some lesson plans that we're providing for teachers that are aligned to scope and sequence so that kids can learn skills and practice skills at home if they choose to. I think that's most of it.
Thanks, Jen. Always nice to see you and hear from you. Anyone else? We've got a couple more, and then I'm going to have Brian wrap up at the end, but we've got time for a couple more. Please.
Ron, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Jim Rose from Yonkers. I just wanted to just say a few things. I was listening. I heard some concerns about the mandate and all that. I really think it's important for the COA to take the lead here, because this event has really magnified the fact that physical education and physical fitness and health are vital. The people that are dying that I see every day quite often have medical issues. For lack of better words, I look at it as our failures. People that are obese with diabetes, heart problems, and all this that we're trying to teach and prevent. So if anything, this event has magnified the fact that phys ed and health is vital. So when we come back to school, there shouldn't be any discussion about limiting phys ed other than doing it the way that you've been talking about how to do it, but it shouldn't be limiting the amount of time or hopefully changing the mandates. I think it would be vital for the COA to form a letter to send to whether it be state ed department and or possibly the governor on how important physical activity and health is going to be when they return to school. That physical education is vital, that it should not be changed. The mandate should not be even talked about, but we should be in a proactive mode of stating how important it is and the things, maybe even put a plan on things that we can do with limitations on facilities and what we're allowed to do. There are still many things that we can do in physical education.
Just a little background. Jim has been an EMT since I think 18 years old, and unfortunately he'll be picking up some people who have passed away or who have coronavirus and has to suit up. So he's seeing things on the front line on a regular basis. And Jim, everything you said makes perfect sense, is that unfortunately some people, not all, but some people who are not making it past this coronavirus, if you look at those health issues. And I think Mike Murray expressed it well. I don't know if there's anything more important than our personal health. To me, there's nothing. That has always got to be at the top of the list, because if you're healthy, you can do everything else. And so I like your philosophy and your comments there. Thank you. Brian, I'm going to ask you, we're just about that time before Clancy goes out, if you can kind of wisdom and just some thoughts at the end, Brian, I would appreciate it.
Listen, I have no wisdom, but I will tell you this. While this has been a negative situation, I've been so inspired, not just by all of you and being a part of this, but by the flexibility of our teachers, their resiliency, the flexibility of our kids. I mean, this is a bad situation, but man, there's so much positive that I'm seeing from people that I work with and people like yourselves. And, you know, I tweeted something a couple weeks ago that I'm not sad, I'm inspired. And it took this to really take a step back and realize that. And the other thing I would say too is one of the things that's forced us to do is talk to each other and meet, not just us as directors, but also with our staff more. And that's a positive, you know, and we shouldn't lose that when we go back to normal at some point when we do. But you know, I'm just inspired. We should celebrate our staff. We should celebrate our kids for being so resilient and maintaining through, you know, when we canceled spring sports on Friday, I was sad, but I was also proud our kids handled it so well. They were unbelievable. And they're just a great example of the right way to do it. So it's a sad time, but the fact that we have all each other is a positive.
So you could be the light in the tunnel. That's fantastic. That is well said. To everybody who participated today, thank you very much. I love hearing this. I love having us come together. Brian, I can, from your input, if we'd like to do this again, let us know and we can arrange it and we can meet again. Everybody stay healthy. That's the most important thing, and stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Can I just add something real quick?
Yes.
I sent out a link in the chat if you're interested in meeting weekly or bi-weekly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, everyone, have a great day.